was in very good shape. We were looking at other vehicles, but unfortunately they were quite rusty. And I know one of the themes these days is to put a Ford in a Ford, but because I work mostly with the Chevrolet engine, we took the Ford and put the LS series engine in it. This particular engine is an LS7 short block with LS1 cylinder heads on it with a carbureted intake. The carbureted intake has a throttle body on it, on top of it, with 8 injectors. So it is a fuel-injected engine, and the engine is coupled to a 6-speed overdrive 6L90E transmission with a tap-up, tap-down feature. We wanted to have all the newest technology into this truck, even though it looks old, much like its owner. This truck was finished in the beginning of March of 2012, and then as soon as it was finished, it went to Toronto to be debuted at Megaspeed. And then at Megaspeed, it won 3 trophies, and one of the trophies was Best Interior. And it was quite a hit. We got a lot of attention at the show in Toronto. And it has been to a few cruise nights, and at a cruise night in Cambridge and in Kitchener, it's quite a hit there. People like it because it's different. Like you wouldn't find another vehicle like this anywhere around. The interior was done with a Harley influence. It has black leather seats with brown leather inserts, like straps in the seat. And the door trim panels have the same. The headliner is upholstered very similar. And the floor has buckles in it also. And the door panels have a wallet on each door with a chain. And it's kind of neat when you look in and see something again like the rest of the truck that's just different. The car culture is very popular these days. I know I started back in the 60s. Okay, I had my first vehicle back there, and you're never satisfied with a standard vehicle, so you have to make a little change here and a little change there. And then you get involved with a friend next door, or a buddy down the road, or a fellow that's a painter, or, you know, and you use your talents, and then you come up with a little bit better vehicle. And that happened all through my life. And it's very, very popular today because there's hot rod shops like Lowdown Hot Rods and Hitman Hot Rods and Boot Hill, etc., that are out there. And people have a passion for an older vehicle that's different, an older vehicle that's a retro rod that looks old but has new suspension in it and new brakes to make it safer, and a new, more economical engine that's emission free. They do not build the vehicles the way they used to, and thank goodness for that, because the new vehicles are much more reliable, much more fuel efficient, perhaps on the mechanical side of it, and on the cosmetic end of it. Well, I like the look of the older vehicles, but I also like the look of the newer vehicles. So I guess it's just your choice. At the present time, I enjoy driving the El Camino. I enjoy driving the 48 tow truck, and we have a 1955 Nomad underway. I picked up this 1955 Nomad from a fellow in Toronto, and he said this vehicle is from the South. And with knowing it's from the South, I thought, well, the body will be in very good shape. And when I saw it, the quarter panels were rusted, the floor was falling out of it. And I said, John, I said, I thought you told me it was from the South. He said, it is, Bob. It's from southern New York State. Well, that's not quite far enough south to get rid of the rust. But anyway, we put a new floor in it. There's new quarter panels on it. My friend Peter in Elmira is looking after that for me. And within the next year or two, we should have a very nice driver in the 55 Nomad. Yes, hot rodding, car building is an ongoing process, and it just seems to go on and on, and whatever vehicle. Some fellows like to stick with the first generation Camaro, 67, 8, 9 Camaro, and there are other peoples like myself that have mid-year vehicles like the El Camino, and then back into the 50s with the Nomad, and then back into the 40s like the 48. So I guess it's, you know, whatever comes along and you look at it, you like it, you start building it. I'm Bob Hilton, and these are my Radical Rides.
Thanks, Bob. Awesome trucks. It's time now for our Loyalty Luxury Auto Tech Tip. Here's Ed Metcalf.
Anyone can appreciate having a genuine classic car in the driveway, but would you let your son or daughter go for a drive in it knowing that it doesn't handle like today's modern cars? In today's tech tip, we're going to discuss the modifications that can be made to these old cars to make them drive like a more modern car. Here we have the original steering gearbox out of our 1967 Ford Mustang. We've replaced this unit because it has play. The flaw of this design is the worm gear technology. At highway speed, the driver must make constant corrections with the steering wheel to keep the car from wandering. To remedy this problem, we've replaced the old steering system with a more modern power rack and pinion setup. This upgrade dramatically improves the car's handling and makes it much more enjoyable to drive. Drum brakes have far less stopping capability than power disc brakes. On our Mustang here, we had drum brakes on all 4 wheels. The driver had to press very hard on the pedal to stop the car. In this case, we removed the drum brakes all the way around and replaced them with power vented disc brakes. This allows the driver to stop the car with far less effort and in a shorter distance. Making these modifications will make your classic car drive more like today's modern cars. And that's today's tech tip. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ed. Don't go away. Radical Rides will be right back with a sport compact you don't want to miss. Welcome back to Radical Rides. Clean lines and subtle modifications are the theme on Kevin Brosseau's Chevy S10. But as we're about to find out, he might not be done with his truck just yet.
I drive a 1997 S10 pickup. I purchased it 3 months out of college. I bought it in November. When I picked it up, I couldn't even drive it because it was stick. I ended up having my father drive it from the auto shop right to a barn for storage. Sat there for the winter. It's never seen winter over the past 15 years. And a few years after, I ended up bringing it into a shop, Ultimate Customs in Ajax, and got it completely redone, taken apart into pieces, repainted, pulled back together with a bunch of cosmetic custom parts. Leading from the front end, the Frenched-in bumper, fiberglass hood, wiper cowl, the mirrors, shaved door handles, shaved gas cap, and then right to the rear end where I got the rear step shaved off with a flush roll pan and shaved the tailgate handle. The idea was to try to make it as sleek as possible, and so it's a consistent color from one end to the other. Back in the late 90s, I got into the mini trucks as the height of its popularity. And for me, it was I've always had an interest in the muscle cars, the sports cars. So this was the affordable sports car for a young guy to have a 2-seater that you could put in a really decent motor in. Has 2 back-wheel drive, and the insurance was affordable rather than having a 2-door sports car. So that's what brought me into this into the trucking scene. At the beginning, I've been involved in quite a few shows back in the early 2000s after I got most of the customization done. Lately, it's been sitting in the garage. My big picture intent is, this car's not going anywhere. I always see it as my retirement project for in the future to do more stuff to it. I'd love to put in a nice big V8 into it, chop the roof off. There's so many little things that you can do with it. It has a full body frame, so there's the potential is endless. Well, it's interesting. When I bought it, it was pretty affordable. I bought it for $14,000 off the lot. No AC, no radio, no nothing. And I've been lucky to have this as my summer driver and a winter beater for the rest of the year. So it's it's hard to come up with the extra money to do the fun stuff, but it's enjoyable in the long run. Definitely, it would be more economical to take an existing vehicle that has been around, and there's so much stuff out there in the scene right now that you can get for parts and so on to do those modifications. The process to do the modifications for the shaved door handles and the gas cap, really it was when the work was done, the sheet metal work was sandblasted right down to bare metal. And panels or filler pieces brought in, welded in, and then sanded out and repainted, which gives it the clean look. Yeah, shaving the door handles and shaving the gas caps is very common. It gives a clean look, so you don't see anything from the front bumper to the back. It streamlines the color right through without any imperfections along the way. When you lower, the truck is lowered 3 inches in the front and roughly about 2 in the back, so it does drop a little bit front heavy, but I went with a static drop just because, one, it's much more economical. It does change the drivability. I always see it drives like a go-kart now, and which is fun on the road, especially on the highway. It seems like you really load to the ground. But it's not a vehicle to go pick up wood or lumber from Home Depot anymore, which is okay with me. It's like a car now, for sure. On the interior, I swapped out. I used to have a bench seat. I swapped it out with Blazer bucket seats. Also took out some of the panel pieces and painted it to match the exterior. Put in a sound system. Pretty well, it's one of those stereo systems that give you a full body massage while you're driving. It's fun. It's very popular to have a stereo system, a decent stereo system with your mini truck. It's neat to have. Under the hood, it's still stock. It just has a 4-banger, but really cheap on gas. $50 gets me almost 500 to 600 kilometers, so that's convenient right now. But yeah, the big picture is definitely to put in a bigger motor. There's no rush. Just waiting for the motor to die. Yeah, the stock wheels, it almost gives it like almost a retro look in a sense, right? Ultimately, I like to get something nicer, some fat, big tires when I change over with the big V8. But it does give it a clean look, consistent from back to front. I guess when I first bought the truck, a lot of people thought it was like the next Extreme, because that was before, I believe it was either 98 or 99 when the S10 Extreme came out, and a lot of people thought that this was a vehicle that was purchased right off the lot as is, and didn't realize that it was custom, because the customizations are so subtle. So that was pretty neat when I first got the work done. A lot of people were very surprised with it. They thought it was some concept car or an extreme vehicle that they haven't seen just yet. My name is Kevin Brousseau, and this is my Radical Ride.
Well, there's 3 trucks that are all capable of hauling asphalt. I'm Gunn, and I'll see you next time on Radical Rides. On today's show, a return to the exotics with a twist. This is Radical Rides. Brent Lavalley has a collection that would be the envy of any car enthusiast, and today he's going to share a small sample with us.
Hi, my name is Brent Lavalley, and I've got several Radical Rides that we can play with. I've actually been into cars for years. My father always had some cars around the farm, and I was able to play with them, and before long I got my mechanic's license, and we were able to play with a lot of different cars. Originally I was into the older stuff, but lately the new stuff has come so far and so fast and so reliable that it's a full 360 to market. So now I've got a lot of preferences in the Porsches, the Lamborghinis, the Corvettes, the Vipers. We still play with some of the older cars because I wanted my daughter to learn about the old stuff. A lot of the new stuff that I'm referring to is the fuel injection, the NOx sensors, so the fuel can be a little bit less of a desired grade. The car will still run functionally, the way that it sticks to the road, the engineering, there's no longer a little bit of play in the front end, it's tight, they're just a pleasure to drive, ice cold air conditioning. The Porsches are fantastic because a lot of this new stuff, they don't drive in the winter, so every bolt comes out, so it's actually a pleasure to work on than a beat up Volkswagen that nothing comes apart. And they're just a great vehicle. The Porsche we have over here is a 2008 997. So it's originally the 911, but it's actually called the 997 because of the twin turbos. This car here is an AWE package, which is pushing just about 700 horsepower, which is bigger intercoolers, bigger turbos, and chipped. This car also features a GT3 suspension, which means it's lowered and it's ready for a racetrack. This car is fully street legal, can be driven every single day to work, and it is absolutely a pleasure to drive. It holds the road. It also features a sport chrono package, so you can actually watch yourself go to work and see how long it takes you to get there. With these cars, I find that a lot of them are just basically you have to stick with it. So not every car is perfect, not every car is going to get you down the road. You just have to not get frustrated and stick with it until you get it figured out. And you got to try a lot of different stuff. I go to a lot of auctions to look at cars. I go to a lot of people's houses. I find a lot of cars that have been sitting for years and years, and we get them out, actually start driving them, and we start enjoying them. And once they start running and driving, they're a real pleasure. And there's nothing like seeing the look on somebody's face after you've driven the car for 6 months or so, or 2 months, and they turn the key and actually see their car that they once had is actually drivable. Well, our collecting habits, the problem with us is that once we get all the bugs out of it, we're very satisfied. Unfortunately, sometimes we do end up selling the cars. Collecting habits are a little bit of everything. Like some weeks we'll have a Viper for a year or 2 years, and other times we'll have it for a week because there's just nothing we can do with it. Right now this Porsche, we're having a lot of fun with it because there's just so much stuff you can do with it, between setting different alignments on the caster camber and just making it right. I used to think that everything had to be original in cars, and in the old stuff I was brought up that way. An original car is great to look at, but it's not real nice to drive. So I've realized that by adding disc brakes, power steering, and adding a lot of creature comforts, that this old stuff can be a lot of fun and drive like the new stuff. So the last few years, our focus in the older cars has changed a lot in making the cars drivable and making people turn the key. I helped a guy out with an older Mustang that he's owned since high school, and after reconditioning it, he put more miles on it last year than he did the entire 25 years of owning it. And seeing that smile on his face is worth it. This Porsche is real good to go out of the gate, but because it was customized, you still have to tweak it. Right now I'm gonna have to put a Sachs 2.5 clutch in it because under this kind of power, it doesn't hold up at high RPMs. So that'll be tweaking. Also, we're gonna tweak the alignment a little bit more and programming, get the navigation set up, figuring out all the little switches. You have to be able to explain to somebody if they're ever to buy a car down the road, how to run everything and to know that it's a good car and that you're not just selling or moving something or toying with something that isn't satisfactory. The Porsche here has really refined itself. What they've done is they've taken the original 911 and they just keep refining it and refining it and refining it. They don't keep redesigning, they don't keep remanufacturing. The level of Porsche quality is absolutely out of this world. Everything is tight, it's drivable, it's reliable, and it's just a real pleasure. Some of the new ones actually have what's called launch control, where you hit a button on the dash, you put your foot on the brake and your foot on the gas, and the car launches itself out of the hole. The Viper's always been a very basic car, but it's just raw power. It is just a no bars hold, power, 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 and there's not a lot of creature comforts in them. The Viper is a good car. It's a fantastic car because there's not a lot to go wrong. Most of the earlier ones never even had power windows. They had nothing. They're just a very basic car. And a lot of the car collectors, the people that all wanted a 67 Corvette or 69 Camaro, have all resorted to the Viper because it is a newer style fuel-injected car that they can drive. That's very drivable. The Porsche is a lot more money than the Viper, and the Porsche also has a lot more creature comforts. It has, they call it a 2+2, where you can actually have two very small back seats, but it's not really for the average person to sit back there. The Porsche is a fantastic car. It's four-wheel drive. The Viper's two-wheel drive. The Porsche has all the navigations, the sport chronos, the xenon headlights. In the newer Vipers, you can get the xenon headlights, but not in the older ones. I don't really have a favorite car at this point because it seems like the sky's the limit. And what I have and what we get to play with is sometimes what somebody wants. So we're very fortunate that way, and the sky is the limit. Some of these cars now, the Lamborghinis, they're pushing 1,600 horsepower in them, which is just phenomenal. Some of the Vipers out there, like I got a customer with over 1,000 horsepower in his Viper. That's a lot of fun when you get that kind of power, and it's reliable. He can drive it every day to work. So we're very fortunate in the role we are in, whereas we get to play with a lot of different cars and make it right. But it's never easy. There's such fantastic cars on the market. They're such reliable. The engineering, the NDT, which is non-destructive testing of parts. You can actually send axle shafts out and get them checked and see if they're going to blow up because there's a crack in it, or there's a bad machining, or there's problems. And just the flow benches. I mean, the power in these engines in the last 10 years is just phenomenal. There's engines I put in a guy's car 10 years ago, and the same engine, they can reflow it and get an extra 100 horsepower on some of the big blocks. The problem is every year they release a new vehicle, and the newer seems to be better and greater. I've been very fortunate that every car on my bucket list I've been able to somehow get a hold of and drive and play with through one of our contacts and customers, and we've just been meeting the right people at the right time. It's meeting actual real car guys that actually turn the key in their car. They actually drive them. I mean, a lot of these guys actually take their cars to Mossport, they'll run around the track, they actually go off and race them, and there's a lot of days where it's fantastic. It's not just a guy opens his garage, rolls back a cover and says this is a fantastic car. It's actually guys turning the keys, getting out, going to cruise nights, going to different places, and enjoying their cars.
Brent isn't the only one in his family with a passion for cars. After the break, we'll meet his brother, Chad. Welcome back. The Lavalley clan shares a special need for speed. Here's Chad to fill us in.
This is my Lamborghini. It's a 2007 Gallardo convertible or Spider. It's the only one in the world that's made in Rosso Andromeda, which is the bright red with a 6-speed transmission in the convertible. The standard red in the Gallardo is actually a dark red, almost a maroon. So this was a special order car. I like red. It really stands out. It's quite bright, and it's also quite unique. I also wanted the 6-speed. A lot of the Gallardos and Murciélagos were made with the E-gear or the automatic. I wanted more of a true sports or exotic car feel, having the 6-speed and shifting the gears. Everybody when I was growing up always used to have the Countach on their wall as a poster. It was the dream car for everyone. So I actually do have a Countach as well, a 4-valve carbureted car, one of only 7 in the world. So it's a great car. It's a little harder to drive though. The windows don't go all the way down. There's less visibility in the back. So what I actually wanted was a open-top roadster, which you could drive and cruise on a nice sunny day. And I think the Gallardo is the best open-top roadster in the world. I've had some Ferraris in the past and other Lamborghinis. I've had Diablo Roadster, Murcielago. The Lamborghini is really wild. It's just the most exotic car out there. It's where you drive by and people say, wow, oh my gosh. Other cars do that, but not to the extent of the Lamborghini. Also, I find Lamborghinis are a lot rarer. You're lucky in your lifetime to even see one go by on the road. Ferruccio Lamborghini was the original developer of Lamborghini. He actually bought Ferraris and he was a tractor builder. But he went into Enzo Ferrari's office and said, you know, I've got some problems with my Ferrari, here's some improvements, and I don't think Ferrari really listened to him, so he actually built his own car. And it started out as more of a coupe, more of a sedan, sort of a driver's car day to day, and then they came up with the first real exotic version was the Miura V12, and built in the late 60s and early 70s. From then they went to the all-out Countach, which is the most famous, I think, of Lamborghinis. And they built those from the early 70s up until 1990. Then it was the Chrysler ownership days where they built the Diablo, and then Diablos went into Diablo Roadsters in the late 90s. And from then it went into Murcielagos and Gallardos. I think they get more drivable, more reliable, but it's just a different feel. It just depends what you want. Well, everybody's looking at you, waving, beeping their horns. It feels great, just the power, just the noise, the sound of the engine. If you're having a bad day and you drive a Lamborghini, you feel great. It's just like somebody took a syringe of adrenaline and pumped it into your thigh. Other people, when they see it as well, it makes them feel good. When they see a Lamborghini go by, you know, it's like, wow, what's that? What's that great thing? And I think it pumps people up as well, as long as they're driven responsibly. Yeah, we do go on some exotic car runs occasionally, so we'll get a bunch of other exotic owners together and we'll go for a nice tour out in the country. Stop. We always have a lot of stops along the way, so we'll stop for coffee, and then there's always crowds of people that come and they want to talk cars. Where did you get it? You know, how much does it cost? How much is insurance? So we make quite a few stops along the way and also have a nice cruise, talk to other owners. It's not a great day-to-day driver, or it's not a great grocery getter or go out for dinner car, because the problem is when you stop for dinner, you come out and there'll be 10 people sitting on it and taking pictures and things. So, which is good and bad. It's good for the attention, but you just have to watch scratches. There are a lot of owners that like to get together and go for runs, like I said, out in the country and things. So there are people who soup up exotics as well, like they did with the muscle cars, twin turbos and superchargers, and a lot of things like that as well. So there is a culture souping them up, and there is also a culture of drivers as well. You always want to own something different once in a while, and you know, I think Lamborghini comes out with some other cars. They just came out with the Aventador. It's kind of neat, so maybe when they come down in price a little bit on the used market, I might pick one of those up. I am a collector because I look for some of the rare cars, like my Countach is one of 7 48-valve carbureted cars. They only snuck a few of them into North America before the EPA shut them down. And then the subsequent Countachs were fuel injected and less powerful. As well, this Gallardo is one of one with the only Rosso Andromeda bright red 6-speed convertible. So I'm a collector from that perspective, and more of an enthusiast is someone who just enjoys the car, enjoys driving for what they are. And so I think I'm a bit of both. I think it's very fast and very wild. I live a fairly fast-paced life and very busy. I'm a physician at the hospital, at St. Mary's Hospital, so we're quite busy there and go, go, go. And it's nice to be able to come out and get into a car like this and relax and feel the power and go a little fast if you need to. Yeah, it definitely is a stress reliever. Just getting into it and knowing at the end of the day there's some enjoyment. In addition to looking after patients and things, which is enjoyable as well. There's a different kind of enjoyment at the end of the day. The wife likes cars as well. We're kind of busy, we have 4 young kids, so she doesn't have time to go along with me, and I don't have as much time to drive as much as I used to either. I have one, the Countach is actually in the basement of my house. The end wall to the garage comes out, and I actually can put it right in front of the fireplace. So she'd like to kind of get that out of there into the garage. But other than that, she likes cars as well and encourages me to follow my interests. Our little guy, on his first day of school, put his lunch into the car because he figured that my wife and I each have a car. The Lamborghini should be his, so he thought maybe he should drive that to school. So they like cars as well. They're a little bit young still to fully appreciate them though. I'm Chad LaValle, and this is my Radical Ride.
Coming up after the break, perhaps the most radical rides this show has ever seen. Don't go away.
Well, I'm back again, and I have two other radical rides that I'm very proud of. This is a 1957 BMW Isetta. It is 298 cc's, so they call it the Isetta 300 because it rounds up to 300. It's got a 4-speed standard transmission. This thing is restored every nut and bolt with my loving family and a couple of friends. The helicopter is a kit. It's a home-built Rotorway Talon A600. It was, the kit came in January of this year, and well, you can see we're flying it already, and it's just a ton of fun. This 1957 Isetta is very hard to find. There used to be lots of them around, but it seems there's not many around right now, and it's a neat car. It's actually featured on another show. My daughter was seeing it on the show, and she said, "Dad, I'd love to work on one of those." So I started looking and looking, and eventually I found one sitting in a barn in Maine that had been there since 1966. This car was all original, very solid, but it needed cosmetic work everywhere. So we tore it right down to the frame and rebuilt absolutely every nut and bolt, including engine, transaxle, tires, brakes, instruments, wiring, everything. The process was about 3 months. We worked on it every night until my daughter went to bed. A couple of my friends helped too, and it was the whole car came apart in about 7 hours, but unfortunately it took 2.5 months to put back together. It was, we had it all soda blasted, so it was down to bare metal, so we were able to see if there was any repair material in the body. It was a very solid body with only one spot that had a dent before it was filled. We had it all hammered out, straightened up, and we went to work on the frame. My daughter was very much involved with everything on this car because it's very small. She actually got to change all her own tires. She got to do a lot of the brakes on it. She got to help with a lot of the stuff. The one night I had to leave and I came back and I come home, she's actually reading a wiring diagram and wiring most of the car. So she's actually thoroughly enjoyed working on this vehicle. Well, we're just starting to put some miles on it now. The plans is actually in the trailer, this car fits under the tail boom of the helicopter. So if we go to an air show or somewhere, we actually have something to drive around and get coffee in. So it's kind of a really neat car as per that spec because it fits under the tail boom. Well, at this point, it's just going to be a hobby car, and the problem is that every time you restore one, you learn more and more and more, so we're not quite sure what she's going to end up with in another 5 years when she turns 16. This car is actually very drivable when it's all set up right. It just takes a bit of time to get all the little points set and the carburetor set and the drivability, the alignment, tie rods. And because it's old school, there's not a lot of precision fitting on any of it, so it takes quite a while to get it set up. But once it is set up, it's a very, very fun car to drive. They actually have a bigger model called an A600, and the 600 would actually have a door at the back and has 2 seats. This is the A300, so it only has one single door at the front that opens up, and the steering wheel, everything tilts forward to allow access in. Now, in order to make it legal to drive on the roads in Canada and North America, they actually have a sunroof. Well, that's not a sunroof, that's actually an escape hatch. So if you rear end the car in front of you or you get sandwiched, you climb out the roof. This probably isn't the safest. It only does about 78 kilometers an hour wide open. But for the city and going around and getting coffee and just driving around, it's just about as much fun as you can have in a car. It's easy to park, easy to drive. Well, about 12 years ago, I was starting to get a little bit bored with cars after you do so many restorations and build enough cars that I wanted to try something a little bit different. So I had found a helicopter and restored the helicopter. And then this year, with my daughter flying with me so much and wife and other people, I decided to order another kit and we built a complete brand new helicopter. Well, this helicopter is actually registered as a full-fledged helicopter. It's a Talon A600. You order the kit, and the company's in Arizona. They actually have a flight training center there that you can go there. There's also flight training units all over Kitchener. There's one in Kitchener, there's one in St. Thomas, there's some in Toronto. So there's places you can go get your license when it is done. But you do have to set it up, build it, tie it down, and actually fly it for the very first time yourself. There's nobody out there that seems to want to get in your home-built helicopter. I try to use this 1 or 2 times a week, this one here. This one just flies amazing. It's done very well. It's a fun machine, it's smooth, it's fast. You can land just about anywhere you want other than in the city. I use it for commuting sometimes. A lot of my customers are out in the country, they live on farms or they have a place like that I will actually land in their backyard and go work on their car, appraise their car, or just go visit them. It makes for quite an entrance. This one actually this year we took to the world's largest air show, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. We actually ended up placing second. We got the Silver Lindy. The Silver Lindy is the quality of your build, the quality of your helicopter, and they all compete. And the judges from around the United States come in and they judge your helicopter, the quality of your nuts, bolts, and everything turned the proper way, and the safety wires, and the rigidity of it. This helicopter is just under the price of a new Corvette ZR1 by the time it's all said and done. So it's very, very affordable. It's just a lot of fun. This one actually has all glass cockpit panels, so you can take a little SD card out of your glass panel and you can put it in your computer at home and you reconfigure all your gauges and you can put little cartoons on it and you can do just about anything you want with it. So on this one here, you almost have to be a computer programmer to figure out most of it, so I did need a little assistance with some of that. I've assisted a few people in helicopters and bringing them into Canada. I don't do that as a business because it's my last hobby that I haven't turned into a business that I really enjoy. We've assisted 14 people with their rotorway helicopters that have actually set them up, done the microvibration analysis, and test flown it for the first time. The ride in this is just phenomenal. It's actually, I've been able to put on frictions and I've got a kind of a homemade cruise control in this one, so it's really just a great experience. We actually fly them. We go through the entire flight manual and we practice all maneuvers available to helicopters. Every month at least I practice all maneuvers. Everything from going up 500 feet, shutting the engine off, to slope landings, confined areas. I mean, we make sure that we know how to fly the helicopter. As for the views and the thrill of flying this helicopter, there's just not much like it. When you're up there and you have no doors on, you're hanging out, you can just, feeling the air coming through. This one cruises at 95 miles an hour, so you're doing basically 150 kilometers an hour. So when you want to get somewhere, you get there in a hurry, and there's just no feeling in the world like it. I have a lot of friends. I kind of got a waiting list of people that I have to give rides to in it. My name is Brent Lavallee, and these are my 2 Radical Rides.
Time definitely flies when you're having fun. I'm Gunn. See you next time on Radical Rides.